Okay, here we go. Good evening and welcome to the McCarthy School Board meeting of August 27th, 2013. Please rise to the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcement, the board met in executive session immediately following last week's work session at Skyview, where we discussed teacher negotiations. Present this evening, all board members are present with the exception of Mr. O'Neill. Moving on to recognition of guests and scheduled speakers, Dr. Miller.
We have no scheduled speakers this evening.
Okay. Moving on to
We
report.
do have a guest here, though, that I think we ought to at least acknowledge.
That would be wonderful.
Dr. David Zerbe is sitting over here, our new superintendent. He's been here all day. He's got a long day today. What time were you on the road this morning? Okay, there you go.
Excellent. All right, we'll try and make this quick.
Get you home by midnight.
Okay, we'll move on to reports then. Finance Committee, Mr. Nascimento.
Thank you for your report.
Moving on.
Nothing to refer this time. You might want to look at the AD.
No report?
No report this time.
And then policy, Mrs. Shackelford.
Policy committee.
There we go. Jeez. I'm sorry.
I go, here you go.
Holy man.
Policy committee
Aim down a little bit.
had a meeting at our work session last week to review 6 policies. We're going to put something together to hopefully incorporate what the board recommended as changes. We will send that out to the board for review, and then we'll have it on for a first reading. Thank you.
Thank you. On to property, Mr. Phillips.
Yes, our conditional use has been applied for. Worcester requested a extension to have the hearings. And we only grant their extension if they give us some dates that they would definitely have the conditional use hearing, and also that they hired their lighting expert. They hired the expert 8/21 of August, and we also need to reach out to them and make sure that we're on the agenda for 9/18. That was in addition to their regular meeting, so for them to advertise
We
it.
haven't approved that date yet.
Okay, so,
We've got the 25th and October 10th, but they haven't approved the 18th yet.
right, so.
Is that this year?
Yes.
Yes, that's this year. And so we need to reach out to the township manager and make sure they get it on their agenda for their work session so they can advertise the 18th and get the ball rolling. So we'll see how that goes. And the land development application for the fields, that was been promised since the second week of July, and that should be, it was supposed to be filed today, and that's something that has to be looked into, and I'll have that report next meeting. And that's all.
Thank you. North Monaco, Technology Committee, Mr. Roth.
Thank you. Technology department has been extremely busy this summer. We just had a technology meeting right before the board meeting tonight. I'll just highlight a couple things. New to the district, which will change a lot of the way things are done, is basically the introduction of the multifunction printers. 34 have been deployed throughout the district, and we're also using a new piece of software called Equitrack, which will be able to basically, in a nutshell, take a print job and print it to the cloud, to a secure district cloud, and then they can, any district employee can use their key card and retrieve that print job at one of these MFP printers. This will eliminate some use of paper, which is good, and it will add a bonus of increasing the security of sensitive documents like IEPs and things like that. We're going to probably, from what Troy says, we'll probably roll this out at the end of September. Also, student logins. This was a big project for the department over the summer. Right now, they've got 1,800 student logins accounts built and that sync nightly. They're going to have light speed security systems will be set up in accordance with age and grade level as these logins or as these accounts are rolled out. Future email accounts will be deployed as well at a later date. Other schools will be rolled out as well, depending on based on the student need, et cetera. For instance, Skyview and Arcola. But again, that has to be discussed a little bit more. But the big things is we'll have these student logins for the kids, and they'll be able to have a gigabyte of storage per student in their home folder, which will allow them to have storage inside and also through the virtual locker. Another thing is the school messenger. This is kind of important for parents, especially because letters have just been sent out. This is the system that replaces Alert Now. So parents will be receiving this letter in the mail on how to migrate to the new school messenger system, which will be important. The smart boards have been a lot of work done on the smart boards. 63 rooms were updated with mounted boards and projectors over the summers. Now the administration is going to make sure that professional development is done with teachers to make sure that they can use these boards to their fullest extent and they're not just sitting around not being used, holding up lunch menus or something like that. So we're going to get working on that as well. And last but not least, which we'll touch a little bit later, is the laptop leases. We're going to replace 7-year-old laptops with a new leasing system, which we will talk about later on in the meeting. That's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. North Monaco Technical Career Center, Mr. Nascimento and Mrs. Woodarding.
Thank you. We met on 8/19, and along with conducting our routine business, we learned, as was attached to, I think, last Friday's board notes, that enrollment is up at the Technical Career Center by 115 students from last year, which is really good news. That would mean that no program is going to be on probation due to low enrollment. And at the end of last year, it was thought that perhaps as many as 4 programs would be placed on probation because there were not sufficient students interested in those programs. The graphic arts program received a 5-year accreditation by a review body in all 7 technical areas, which was quite a good thing for them. Their annual audit is currently underway at the Tech Center. Assistant Director Pardovich spoke on the productive sessions with teachers making their way toward the new evaluation instrument over there. And finally, and maybe one of the most exciting things that was shared with us, was that Director Lucas described a proposal from the Metals Service Center Institute that essentially offers a scholarship opportunity for students willing to participate in an automotive youth education system, which is designed to provide entry-level automotive technicians to the major auto manufacturers. This would begin in 9th grade and run up to the student's senior year, and there are summer internships, paid and unpaid, available, and up to $1,000. So that speaks to meeting a void in manpower for that particular trade. That's it.
Thank you. Intermediate unit, Mr. Jones.
I have no report on that.
Thank you. On legislation, well, not a whole lot's been going on in Harrisburg, but I do have a couple of updates. One update is on the property tax elimination discussion. That was originally introduced as House Bill 1776, and as you know, nothing happened in Harrisburg on this last year. It's been revised a little bit, and now it's a Senate Bill 76. And the General Assembly, apparently, when they reconvene in September, there's going to be a push to move House Bill 76 out of the Finance Committee and ultimately bring it to a full vote. The problem with House Bill 1776 was there was a committee, a property tax reform committee chaired by Tom Quigley, and this was presented to the General Assembly on November 30th. The major concern of this, and the concern by an independent fiscal office, was that there would be a shortfall of revenue if we went to the House Bill 1776. House Bill 76, the Senate bill, believes that this is responsive to those findings, and so that may have a better chance in moving forward. Pretty much what this House Bill 1776 is, what it proposes is an increase to the state personal tax from 3.07 to 4.34. It broadens the base of the state sales tax to include more services and products, so you'll be to a new rate of 7%, so you'll be taxed on more things than you are now. And but it will use the current sales tax mechanism to fund schools. The plan is, under this act, or under this bill, is to eliminate school property tax over a 2-year period. In the first fiscal year, they'll enact school property taxes to be frozen, and then in the second year, they'll go away completely. This has some real issues for Montgomery County, because the bill does not address the PA constitutional issue regarding tax equity. As such, if property tax, if eliminated on residences, they also have to be eliminated on business. And with the other problem, in particular for Montgomery County, is that we're one of the wealthiest counties in the Commonwealth, and our income tax generated here will go directly to Harrisburg, and we may not, and probably we will not, get a dollar to dollar coming back to the district. So that's a problem. So that's the skinny on the property tax. The other thing that happened over the summer too was that Pennsylvania applied and received a waiver to the No Child Left Behind. And we received this waiver on August 20th. The waiver is going to apply to all public schools in Pennsylvania. I believe there's 40 other states that also applied and received this waiver. And what this does is it eliminates the category of having to obtain annual yearly progress. And they've come up with some new titles where your school will be in a priority group, a focus group, or a reward group. And I'm not going to go through it all, it's pretty lengthy, but if you go on the PD, on the Pennsylvania Department of Education website, there is an overview. I think it's about 6 pages. There's some frequently asked questions that will be answered, and in that, it identifies the accountability measures, what the state is going to do. The state is going to have to hold the schools accountable rather than the federal government. It'll describe the intervention systems, the support systems, and how they're going to differentiate between recognition, recognizing the better performing schools, and how they're going to assist the poor schools. So that's an update on the No Child Left Behind waiver. And that's all I have for legislation. And we can move on to community liaison, Mrs. Barone and Mr. Roth.
Thank you. For Lower Providence, the biggest item that's happening right now with the North Acton School District is that our school resource officers will be actually switching positions. Officer Nastasi will be moving to to the high school, and Officer Stead will be moving back to Arcola.
And the elementary schools. He will have Arcola and the elementary schools.
And the elementary schools. Thank you.
Kathleen, I have a question. Was there any discussion on how the Arcola Bridge outage is going to affect the school district? I mean, buses go over that and...
Our buses do not.
Oh, they don't?
No,
Okay.
they have lowered the weight limit on that bridge over the last couple of years to the point where our buses can't go over it anymore. So our buses, it's not going to affect them. I don't know if anybody else's do.
I think the other side that's not affecting anyone.
It's not. The other side of the creek is Perky Valley, so it's not us, but we don't even take any over to service any of theirs.
I know there was quite a bit of conversation among some of the teachers this morning about how much longer it was going to take them to get to work, but...
Yeah, we have a lot of people that go across.
Yeah.
We just don't have. I called Terry right away and checked.
Herb, anything on Worcester?
Well, Jim basically said a lot of what I had to say regarding the status of our conditional use and things like that, but I also want to bring something up to the board regarding our dealings with Worcester as a whole and as a board. Being the liaison is all well and good here, but I would like, as we go through this process, that board members be present in numbers at these hearings and things like that, not only just to show that we want this done, but also to make sure that it gets done. Now, that being said, I definitely think, I have confidence in Eric Fry that he can get the work done for us. However, he works for the district. We are the ones making the decisions on this, and we are the ones that need to guide him and give him guidance as to what we want as far as these hearings go. If things go south, then we need to be there and ready to conference him and give him support if need be. And especially,
I think it would be good to have
yeah, and
as
so
many of the board members as possible.
I would like to have, that we charge the board to have at least 3 members there at every, if not more, at every conditional use hearing. I know that as soon as all those hearing dates are established and confirmed, I know I will do everything I can be there, no matter what time they are. So,
So we know that already there's 2 9/25 and 10/10, those have
That's
been
correct.
approved.
September 25th and October 10th, Eric told me, are definite dates.
So mark your
He's
calendars.
trying to get the 18th as well.
90,
And these are all evening meetings?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
I think they start at 7.
7 o'clock.
So,
Okay. So anyway, that's all basically I had to say to make sure that, we get these things done. So, all right.
Thank you. Mrs. Barone, anything on home and school?
Yes, I did meet with all of the district council leaders, so that's all the presidents from all the different home and schools. We just recently met, and they have several initiatives that they're putting together for this new school year. One of the big things they're going to do for us is to track their volunteer hours and give us an idea of how that is helping us financially with actually taking care of some of the business that we may not be able to afford due to the economy, so all the things that they help us with. Another thing they're working on is trying to get themselves together to work on actually having buying power, so that when they do their different events or purchase things, their yearbooks, their spirit wear type items, that potentially they can now try to go to, I don't know, maybe one vendor who can give them significant savings throughout the district, and maybe that would help for some of their purchases for the parents. Another thing, just so that everybody knows here, when we do our volunteer clearances, this year we had a new policy through our school board that we have all of our, no matter what you're doing in the school as a volunteer, you have to have full clearances. It used to be, it depended on what you were doing. One of the things that's involved in that is 3 processes. You have to have 2 clearances for your child abuse and through the state police, and then you also have to have a TB shot. Currently, so that you all know, there is a shortage of TB shots in the area, so we do not have our TB shots. So we have had to extend that one part of it. You have to have your first 2, and then you're considered a pending volunteer. Until we get those TB shots, we are going to give the extension of 30 days until we get our supply. After that, we are going to work on potentially, for those parents that do work, setting up maybe an evening where we can have a nurse come and hopefully a clinic to do that. Otherwise, they are able to go to the high school for free during the day with an appointment to get that taken care of by the nurse. But just so, in case you hear about that, that is definitely true, and I'm not sure if it's just our area or all of Pennsylvania, but it is happening, so that's all.
Thank you. We have no student board reps here tonight. Dr. Miller.
Some of the things I was going to say were in the second. Turf project, I was going to say we are moving towards those conditional use hearings September 25th, October 10th. I was going to say the same thing as many of you as can get there as possible. We're going to get the word out to people so people know when this is and when they're coming, so they can be present. Bus scheduling is completed. Our actual private school enrollment is down. Quite a few people. It has allowed us to eliminate 1 run and a couple of midday runs for private schools, and it will save us somewhere north of $100,000, I believe. So that's a good thing. Athletic programs are underway. They had a great first week of practice. My gosh, the weather was just incredible. That doesn't usually happen in August. Getting a little hotter now, but they had a nice week. Baseball field project, you have in front of you a zoning variance. There is an item on the agenda later, a zoning variance request. Mascaro is requesting 4 variances, and you can read them. I won't spend a lot of time on them, but basically they are fence height is one of them. The reconstruction of the dugouts is another one. There's a variance for the scoreboard. Oh, and there's already some setback problems, so the setback problems will continue. So there's a setback, I think variance 2 is for setbacks for the outfield and the fence and that. Some of the fencing is going to exceed their height, and some of it as you look through the plan, the very end has kind of a picture of what they're planning to do. I thought I'd spend a little more time on this in September. We just got this variance today. I signed it so we could get it in today, so you can get on the September agenda. The field itself isn't changing any. They're not doing much in the outfield. They're replacing the infield. And then basically what they're doing is safety and security kind of things with fencing, particularly to protect the tennis courts, which now get a lot of hard balls coming over there towards people on the tennis courts. Going to be some fencing and netting above it that is not only lowerable but removable, so that we can, after baseball season, take it in. But they can put it up for the games, and some of it's going to be as high as 14 to 40 feet. It'll protect the parking lot and the cars in the parking lot from balls, and it'll protect the kids on the tennis courts from balls. You can look through, you'll see the pictures. They've really got a really nice plan, I think, here. Paul and I met with Mascaro the other day, and he showed us the plan, and he said, go ahead, we can make changes in it if we need to later. So I'll kind of spend a little time in September describing it to you. There is a variance for the scoreboard because the scoreboard is considered to be internally lit, so we're going to go through all of that, which of course, Esther, you know how that is. But other than that, they're going to do, I think, a really nice job, and they'll make that field a lot safer than it is now. Right now, there are balls flying around that people get hit with. So anyway, the approval of him submitting a variance request is on the agenda for tonight, and then we'll talk about it more in September, and you can have some time to look through all of this at your leisure. The SRO is going to talk about it. They've switched places. The auditor is going to be in next week, so our local audit will be starting. The NCLBA waiver, I was going to talk about that. The only thing I would add is that the waiver now allows them to measure us based on growth rather than some arbitrary figure that nobody's going to hit at some point. It allows us to come up with measures that can measure our growth as we move along. And then the other thing, we had first day for staff today. Terrific opening day. Ms. Petroskas introduced our new superintendent to the staff. Made some very nice comments. Appreciate that. And the other thing is, the other big news of the day, Diana Kernup announced this morning to the staff that we have a tentative collective bargaining agreement. The union will be meeting on Thursday to go over the agreement. They will be voting sometime next week, and after that, it will come to the board for their vote. We won't release any details of it until after the teachers' vote, but their vote should be, I think, next Thursday or Friday. So that was the big news this morning. That's it for me.
I looked at this baseball. I'm sure that we'll get into it, but currently the way they have it designed cuts off part of the hockey field.
Yes, and we've talked about that. The idea behind this is that by the time this is done, the turf fields will be done. If the turf fields aren't going to be done, then part of that fence can't be put up
I have a bridge
until we
in
play.
Brooklyn.
Pardon?
I have a bridge in Brooklyn.
Anyway, the second part of my comment is, if it looks like the turf fields aren't going to be done, that part of the fence is going to not be put up so that we can play field hockey there. And then the district will put that up after the turf fields are done. We did talk about that. You can't cut through there with the fence until we are sure we don't need hockey.
Okay.
It's only that one corner
I know.
that we need. Yep, we talked about that.
Cuts down part of the game.
It does. It makes it. It does bank the ball off though and get you a little bit better shot on goal.
Change the tactics of the game.
Alrighty.
We talked about that, Louise. The idea is that the turf fields are done by fall and this is done by spring and everybody's playing next year. But that bridge in Brooklyn is still for sale.
Whatever you're smoking.
Or whatever.
Okay, moving on to public comment. Do I have any comments this evening on any board actions that we'll be taking this evening? Mrs. Alba.
Candy Alaba, Eagleville. Apparently you're going to vote tonight on number 9.5, which is a resolution for technology infrastructure. Now, this is a resolution where you're voting to contemplate incurring debt up to $750,000. There was no public discussion on this. The last paragraph of the last page states that the school district met the advance notice and public comment requirements of the Sunshine Law. This should have been discussed last week. There was no voting items at the work session. This is something that needs to be discussed. I mean, I don't know if the board discussed it amongst themselves. If you did it, you met privately or an executive session, but the public has not been made aware of this. This is a lot of money, up to $750,000. This, I mean, Mrs. Barbone brought up last week that the front of the agenda states at the work session you're to discuss what is to be voted on the following week, and there was no voting items last week. There has been no discussion of this. And according to the certificate, if Donna Kuhn signs this, this is not following the Sunshine Law. There was no advance notice. There was no notice posted out here that this was going to be discussed tonight. I mean, it wouldn't be an issue if this wasn't already printed out. I mean, the Sunshine Law is very clear. And if you're going to be voting on something that's this much money, it needs to be discussed and not just put on an agenda less than 24 hours before the meeting and then voted on. I mean, there's nothing that's been even said what the money is going to be used for or what the whole purpose of this is. So I would hesitate to vote on this tonight, since at this point the certificate can't be signed by anyone, because she didn't follow the dictates of the Sunshine Law.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I don't know specifically, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what specifically the violation is that's being alleged. Essentially, what has to happen in order for a matter to be on your agenda is that your meeting has to be advertised and that you have to give the public notice of the purpose of the meeting. Oftentimes, that's done by stating a general purpose to the meeting. With respect to a regular meeting, you've advertised for some time, generally at the beginning of the year, with respect to all of your regular meetings, and any of your business that's properly presented before the board can come before the board as a result of that legal advertisement. So I don't know what violation is being alleged, because, quite frankly, I don't see any. I think you have...
The item was on the agenda. The agenda was posted 24 hours in advance, and it has not been discussed in private, so I don't see what violation.
There is no requirement that you discuss any agenda item in private and then come out and report it. If you don't have an executive session on a particular item, then there's no need to report it, and there is no need to have an executive session with respect to any particular agenda item. If you don't have a private discussion, that you're not violating the Sunshine Law. You don't need to have a private discussion to comply with the Sunshine Law.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comments this evening? There being none, do I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of the work session held on July 16th, 2013, and the regular board meeting held on July 23rd? Do I have a motion? Mr. Jones, do I have a second? I know, thank you. Mr. Roth, do I have any comments or questions from the board? All in favor? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to fiscal items, Mr. Whiteleather.
Thank you. A couple of items on for this evening. Item 9.1 is the list of bills. You'll see a little change to that from previous. What we've looking at with our software package is just trying to give you a little more information about what's specifically being paid for each vendor. Oftentimes what will happen, especially now more so than any other point in the year, one vendor could submit multiple invoices with partial shipments of product to the school. So what we've been trying to do is list those items individually. So it might be one check but you'll see multiple line items for that, trying to detail for you in a little more helpful fashion as to what we're paying for. So just that item of note relative to the bills. Item 9.2 is our monthly treasurer's report for your approval. Item 9.3 is the approval of the agreement for Moss Rehab for the 13-14 school year in the amount of $63,750. Pleased to say that that is a decrease over the 2012-13 contract by amount of $275. Item 9.4, we spoke about in our technology committee, is the approval of a 4-year lease with Vantage Financial in the amount of $72,710 for 400 Dell laptop computers. The total cost of that over 4 years will be $290,840. Item 9.5, the resolution relative to tax-exempt lease for fund technology capital improvements. I'll explain this basically in a nutshell. What happens is last year we purchased technology equipment throughout the year, and then at the end of the year we asked for you to approve a lease of that equipment. So basically what we did is we combined all the equipment we purchased throughout the school year, combined it all together, and then put that out on a lease. So we could finance the payments over a period of time, 4 years, 5 years, whatever we decided on. What happens is that if you do not pass a resolution within 60 days of the purchase of a piece of equipment, the IRS considers that a taxable transaction. And what does that mean? That means that when we go out and do a lease, it is normally a tax-exempt lease. So it allows the leasing company to have a lesser cost to them on a federal taxation level. If you do not approve a resolution that, as stipulated in 9.5, if we would try to combo all of the equipment, all the technology equipment we would purchase throughout the 13-14 school year, and then try to do a lease at the end of the year, we would have to do it as a taxable lease.
So your
meaning
interest rate is higher.
it would cost us more money. This resolution simply gives us the opportunity to purchase those items throughout the rest of this year and then do a tax-exempt lease at the end of the year. That's all it's doing for us. We have the money budgeted within technology. It just simply allows us that avenue to do it on a less cost basis. So hopefully that explains that to you.
It does, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So everybody understands. What we're doing is we are buying the stuff over the course of the year and then rolling it back into a lease at a future date. Then the money that we put out prior to that, or is it on a purchase order type basis where they don't get their money until a later time?
We initially pay for it, and then we are reimbursed from the leasing company. The leasing company will send us a check for the value of the equipment.
The money comes back to us.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I wanted to
Yes.
say, because nowhere in there didn't say that.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, and item 9.6, it's a confidentiality resolution with Berkheimer Tax Administrators. Again, pretty straightforward, but as part of the consolidation of tax collection services on a countywide basis, we are required per the law to appoint individuals at the school district who can obtain what is considered confidential tax information from individuals that live within the Methacton School District. As a result of that, it's necessary for us to appoint those individuals, which asking for your approval for myself and the business office supervisor to be those two individuals for the school district that would be able to request information from Berkheimer relative to Methacton residents. And item 9.7, I will defer to Dr. Miller.
We have two special ed settlement agreements. One is a continuation of agreement you approved 2 years ago. The other one is a new agreement. Both are for tuition. Both costs are $21,500 for the year. They are both private school tuition settlements, and I'd recommend you approve them.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any reason why we can't take all of these together, unless you see some other.
I don't.
I have a question before.
Can I ask for the motion first, and then
Oh,
we'll
okay.
get to questions?
Go
Have Mr. Massimento, do I have a second? Mr. Roth? Okay, Maria.
Stuart. Doesn't like to go on. Stuart, what is this 9.3, this Moss rehabilitation? What are the, I mean, I read their contract.
That's our athletic trainer. We no longer employ our own athletic trainer. Moss Rehab provides athletic training services for us.
Okay, so we don't do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's cheaper for us than to employ our own person and pay health insurance benefits and all that. So we employ an agent to come in and do that. So they provide athletic training services for the high school and our school.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Did I read that correctly, that the training person is at home games only? Does the
Yes,
training
'cause
person travel?
No, typically not, because the other team, the other home team provides an athletic.
Is that a PIAA rule?
I don't know, but I don't know if it's a PIAA rule. You have to if you're the home team. Some teams will send their trainer with the team. We don't, because when there's an away game, there's also a home game or something here, so we need the trainer on site for that. So typically, we don't send them. We'll send them to playoff games often, but we don't send them on away games.
Do we have any other questions from the board? There being none, all in favor? 8-0, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Harney for personnel items.
Yes, this evening we have 3 resignation professionals for your approval. We have 4 resignation classified. We have 5 employment professional, which should wrap up our professional hires for this school year. We have 1 employment classified. We have 1 change of status professional. We have 2 change of status classified, 2 uncompensated leave professionals. Under supplemental contracts, we're asking your approval in 1 through 4 for the various lists, list of activity sponsors, list of department and subject area coordinators, list of instructional software support specialists, and the list of mentors, and the 3 additional supplemental contracts in 5, 6, and 7. We have 1 addition to our classified substitute list for your approval. We have 19 advisements. I'd like to call your attention to the first 2. Leah Milrod achieved and met all requirements for the National Board Certification in School Counselor. And we also have one of our administrators, Susan Angstadt, recognized as a Pennsylvania Fellowship Program for the Special Education Leaders of Pennsylvania. And we have our additions to the volunteer list as listed.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve items 10-1 through 10-13 under personnel items? Mr. Jones, do I have a second? Mr. Nascimento? Any questions or comments from the board for Mr. Harney or the rest of the board?
The supplemental contracts, are they all teachers that, or are they outside people that are getting contracted?
It can be either. I can look through the list. We've got anybody that does coaching can be inside or outside. Any of the inside, like the department chair, subject coordinators, activity sponsors, instructional software support specialists, the list of mentors, those folks are all internal professional staff. Stephen Kistler is one of ours. Maria Numerato is one of ours, and Karen Simeone is outside. Again, if they're coaches, they could be hired from either within or without, or outside, I should say.
Any other questions from the board? All in favor? 8-0, motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to programs, Dr. Miller.
I think the program we have is the approval of the established bus stops for 2013-14. There is a list somewhere that you can access of the hundreds of bus stops that we ask you to approve every year, and I'd ask you to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 11.1 under programs? Yes. Mrs. Woodring. And a second. Mr. Phillips. Any questions for Dr. Miller? All in favor? 8-0, motion carries. Thank you. And on to policies.
I think Maria, we're not doing anything with the first readings. We'll just sit there. We do have one for second reading, and that's the organizational chart, and I'd ask that you that on second reading.
Very good, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 12.2 under policy, second reading? Mr. Phillips, do I have a second? Mrs. Shackelford? Any questions? All in favor? 8-0, motion carries, thank you. And on to other, Dr. Miller.
Two under other, I'd like you to take them one at a time. The first one is a proposal for a person to provide expert testimony for us in the conditional use application. This is a land development specialist, Kenneth Amy. His fee is $125 an hour, and I ask you to approve him as an expert witness.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the proposal for Kenneth Amy as our expert testimony witness? Mr. Phillips, do I have a second? Mrs. Woodring? Any questions for Dr. Miller?
Do we have any prognostications at all about how much time this is going to take?
I do not think we do, but I may have a better idea for you when we have our witness prep next Tuesday. But even then, I'm not sure we'll have a prognostication of how long. Now, we will have a pretty good idea of how long his testimony will take, I would think. We'll have an estimate of that, but how long the hearings will go, who knows? Cross-examination sometimes can take a long time.
Any other questions for Dr. Miller? There being none, all in favor? 8-0, motion carries, thank you. And on to 13.2.
We have a request for variance, Worcester Township. That is a document from Mascaro and Sons that I put in front of you, and I would ask that you approve the submission of that to Worcester. It was submitted today, so please approve.
All righty, do I have a motion to approve the variance?
So moved.
Mrs. Woodring, do I have a second? Mr. Phillips? Any questions? All in favor? Please, no questions. Thank you. Is it
Excellent, thank you.
8-0?
I'd hate to go over and knock on their door and try to get
Okay, that motion carries. Under dates for board members' calendars, September 17th, we'll have a policy committee, a policy committee at 9 a.m., a finance committee meeting at Skyview at 6:15, to be followed by our work session at 7, and then back here again on September 24th, 6:15 for property committee, and 7 o'clock for a regular board meeting. Do I have any old business from the board? Mr. Roth.
Just one more thing. I just want to reiterate the dates for the conditional use hearing. They confirmed the two dates are September 25th and October 10th. There's a possible date of September 18th. You guys can write those down.
Now, we have to keep watching as to
Right.
where that is, because they're working on the building.
Right. It may not be at Worcester Hall.
It might be at the firehouse.
Could be at the firehouse.
They might even ask us for a space.
Yeah.
I'd be happy if you could use an auditorium somewhere. Might be just able to fill it up.
Any other old business? Any new business from the board?
I have one item that I'd like Stuart to address a little bit. Involves, we've been working on a request for proposals for transportation services, and I'd like him to speak to that for you, if he will.
Stuart?
Thank you. Over the past several months, administration has researched and prepared a contracted transportation RFP document. The purpose of this RFP is to examine any possible operational efficiencies that may be available to the Methacton School District by contracting our transportation operations. This RFP document has been reviewed and approved by our solicitor. As such, we are planning on publicly advertising and distributing this RFP as of September 2nd, 2013. Public advertisement will take place for 3 weeks following September 2nd, both by direct vendor notification, electronic means via our website, and also the newspaper. After receipt of proposals by the October 14th, 2013 RFP deadline, administration will review and then bring back any findings and possible recommendation for further administrative and school board discussions. If you have any questions pertaining to this, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart. Does anybody have any questions now? Okay, then we will move on to courtesy of the floor. Do I have any comments from the floor this evening? Mr. Evans?
I just have a couple questions. First of all, when the ordinance that was passed at the township meeting, hiring a contractor or whatever for the lights.
An expert, they hired an expert, the township did, a lighting expert.
But don't we have a contractor on board?
He's our expert. He's our expert.
Okay.
They have to get their own.
Why? Well, regardless, that's more money wasted as far as I'm concerned. But if you have a man that's already on board to do this, why do we have to have the township stick their nose in where it doesn't belong? It doesn't make sense.
The township insisted that.
Right, and then after this is approved, what's going to be next? The color of the paint that we use, the grass that we put on the turf? It'll just go from, I can just see it going down the line, one thing after another. If these football lights ever get put on, I'm going to need a shovel to dig myself out of a grave to look at them. You know, all kidding aside, I mean, 20 years we've been working on this thing. If I was on a committee and it took me 20 years to satisfy something, I'd certainly be ashamed of myself, and I'm not passing the buck to anybody, but you all know who I'm talking about. And the other thing is, in the paper yesterday or today, I saw where I think it was about 80% of the tax dollar goes to wages and salaries. You know, they gave an example, I don't know exactly what it was. If your taxes were $3,000 on your property, $2,400 of that goes to salaries and benefits. The $600 left goes to the students. That's a pretty bad ratio. If you want to save money, I see you cutting program after program, alternating this to get money down. Why don't we look where we got 80% of it going and see what we can do about salaries and benefits? If you want to save money, that's the place to look for it. That's where most of it's going. And I don't know of any teacher or administrator that's making less money this year than they did last year. Maybe what they ought to do is take what the senior citizens got the last 2 years. I'm a senior citizen. I'm not complaining about my taxes. It's not going to push me out of my house. But I think every year, after year after year, taxes go up and up and up, and the salaries go up and up and up. Think about that when the contracts come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any other comments this evening? Ms. Alba?
I just have a question. When you said that the teachers came to some decision, is the public going to be informed of what any decisions or what they're asking for or what the board, before any votes are taken? Yes. I mean, are we going to be privy to?
Yes.
Because I know I read today, like Phoenixville had settled certain contracts, but they put all that information out there before they took the vote. So I was just curious if we're going to know, you know, what they're asking for and what the school district's willing to give before anything. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Again, yes.
Any other comments this evening? There being none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Nascimento, do I have a second? Mr. Phillips, all in... Wait, Angela. Oh, Angela, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry.
Poor Angela.
I was like, yes. No, I'm going to give it. Okay, hold that thought. Angela.
Suspended for the moment.
As Dr. Miller mentioned, we had a fantastic opening day today with hundreds of faculty and staff joining us for a welcome back program as they, oh, for heaven's sake. We're okay? Okay. Return to school, and our new superintendent, Dr. David Zerby, and Board President Petrauskas made welcome remarks This program was followed by meetings and professional development that staff will attend for yet 2 more days for professional development before students return to school. On Tuesday, September 3rd, 5,000 Methacton students will return to our schools, ready and eager to learn. Final preparations are underway as teachers prepare classrooms. Necessary technology is put in place, and buildings are prepared by custodial staff. Principals and other members of the district's administrative team will fan out district-wide to greet students as they walk off the bus on the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, and again, my apologies. All in favor? 8-0. Motion carries. Thank you. Good evening. Drive home safely.
Executive session.
We'll be meeting in executive session after this meeting.